The 2026 Stanley Cup Final is officially set. It is the Vegas Golden Knights, the villains of the NHL, who have the opportunity to win their second Stanley Cup in just their 9-year history. They're going up against the team that has been knocking on the door for years and has finally found a way to break through to get the opportunity that everyone dreams of, and that is competing for the Stanley Cup. That team is the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's dive into how these two teams got here and how they will try and expose one another in a 7-game series. Ladies and gentlemen, this is everything you need to know for the 2026 Stanley Cup Final. And before we hop right in, we got to thank our good friends over at SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads. There's more than 70,000 listed events from sports to concerts to festivals and more. It's still the easiest way to find a great deal. You browse seating on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is no bueno and it's red. 10 is green. That's a banger. Snatch up those tickets right away so that you get into your event at a great price. The best way to use it is before a game on the app on your phone, where you can snag some unreal last minute deals. The World Cup is almost here. The Stanley Cup Final is here. You can find all those tickets on the SeatGeek app. You know they hooked us up with a code to get you some great deals too. So if you hit the link in the description to download the app, it'll automatically apply the code Hockey2026 so that you can get 10% off your next pair of tickets. SeatGeek's my go-to. Been using it for years. It's why they're always a sponsor on this channel. Hockey games, baseball games, whatever games, you name it, I use SeatGeek to get my tickets, and you can too while scoring a great deal if you download the app and use the code on screen here. Let's start with Vegas. Damn it, does it seem like the house always wins, and that's because they really do. The Golden Knights have set a standard for their organization that accepts nothing less than greatness, and how they've built their team shows that. They trade all their picks to grab stars, they fire or move on from anyone who doesn't perform up to expectations, and they're only loyal to one thing, and that is winning. This year's version of the Golden Knights feels like the perfect embodiment of the franchise since entering the league in 2017. They've been aggressive, controversial, and relentless, and now they're back to competing for a Stanley Cup. They came into the season making a big splash. Before hitting free agency, they pulled some strings under the table to trade for noted playoff choker at the time, Mitch Marner. The biggest pending free agent joins Vegas, signs a big ticket, and immediately they become a Cup favorite. However, they couldn't consistently find their stride as injuries were all over the place. Captain Mark Stone, the LTIR legend, found himself back in the very spot he made famous, along with other injuries, meant that Vegas had a tough time dominating like everyone expected. However, analytically, they were still one of the best teams in the league throughout the season, especially defensively. Their only issue was their goaltending couldn't stop a beach ball. So they made yet another controversial move, signing Carter Hart, who is one of the 5 players on Canada's 2018 World Junior team who was accused of committing sexual assault. When all of them were found not guilty, Vegas jumped at the chance to sign Carter Hart and fix some of their goalie problems. Still, winning games consistently wasn't an issue, but with the Pacific Division being the worst division in sports and being titled the Pillow Fight Division by Connor McDavid himself, Vegas was able to hang around in the playoff picture. They went on a brutal stretch that saw them have 1 regulation win in 8 games, and so with them being in danger of potentially slipping out of a playoff spot, they said, screw it, we're getting rid of the coach. Bruce Cassidy, the man that led them to their first Stanley Cup, was told to kick rocks with just 8 games remaining in the regular season, and they bring in none other than John Tortorella. The man who gets paid per F-bomb steps in as the head coach, and right away, he came in with the approach that he wasn't going to change anything with the X's and O's. For him, it was all about the mindset of Vegas, and damn it, did he have a good read on this team. They went 7-0-1 down the stretch, won the Pacific Division, took down Utah and Anaheim in 6, and then proceeded to sweep the President Trophy champs. Colorado finished 26 points ahead of them. They didn't lose 3 straight games all season long, and yet Vegas made them look silly. They are meeting the Carolina Hurricanes, who have been through the ringer the last few years just to get to this point. The Hurricanes are the best example of staying the course with their patience and their process. Every year, they finish near the top of the standings, dominate the analytics, and enter the playoffs as a legitimate contender. Yet despite all their regular season success, they would fall just short of a cup final. 3 conference final appearances since 2019 have all ended in a loss, including last season when they lost in 5 to the Florida Panthers. Despite that, Carolina made 2 key pickups in the offseason toward Nikolai Ehlers and a sign and trade that brought over Keandre Miller from the Rangers, and so they did what everyone expected. They dominated the regular season, had the best record in the East, but the same questions remained. Do they have enough star power to get over the hump? Will their goaltending hold up? Frederik Andersen battled injury all season long, and year after year, it has been a spot where they have been exposed. But no sugarcoating it, this team is a wagon. They swept their first 2 series against Ottawa and Philadelphia, and then when people said, wait till they face a real opponent, Carolina said, yeah, watch this. They exercised the demons and dominated Montreal in 5 games in one of the most lopsided series we've ever seen. A 12-1 record going into the Cup final is something that hasn't been accomplished in 50 years. And so this journey sets up 2 teams who have drastically different styles both on and off the ice, going at it for Lord Stanley. Analytically, these were 2 of the top 5 best teams in the league in terms of expected goal share, and so their runs to the Cup final have shown how they might want to dictate how this series goes. Let's look at the Vegas formula for success first. Carolina plays a man-on-man defense, and they do it better than anyone in the NHL this season, except for maybe the Colorado Avalanche. Very similar to Colorado, the pressure from Carolina is going to be nonstop. You have tight gaps everywhere, and so one way they can exploit this is by drifting the man-on-man coverage high to spread everyone out and then creating these 1v1s at the net. You'll see here with this possession by Marner, he's going to take this puck by the half wall and climb higher in the zone to draw out that coverage. Everyone on Colorado gets into a man-on-man, and even though the coverage is pretty good, Vegas will take their chances with their big bodies up front to win these types of one-on-ones at the net. Marner throws it in the mixer, coverage scrambles, and Vegas puts one home. The Knights will want to use their heaviness in and around the crease to win these 1v1 battles and create chaos. The next is also their forecheck. They run a 1-2-2, but the way they hunt puck carriers, tie up sticks, and reload above the play is incredible. This play here is how it can become a coverage nightmare for Carolina. Look at how sticky Vegas is on the forecheck. Hurdle ties up the stick, makes it ugly on Colorado's D, and then as it goes around, this time it's Sissons tying up the stick. That allows for Vegas' forecheck to finally get possession, and from there, they instantly look to expose the man-on-man by running multiple high scissor routes to create a solid chance. That'll be how Vegas looks to score off of sustained pressure. The next will be on the counterattack. Despite Carolina being known for their dump and chase play over the last few years, this season they have taken another step because they've leaned more into creating off the rush and having possessions on entry. This is where the structure of Vegas' neutral zone will look to create turnovers and odd man rushes the other way. Carolina is still great at managing the puck, but so is Colorado, and Vegas really left zero room for their best guys to cook. Now, when you look at Vegas defensively, it is a much different approach to Carolina's man-on-man. Vegas plays a zone defense where it emphasizes denying shooting and passing lanes rather than individual players. Unlike Carolina in the man-on-man, you're going to very rarely see Vegas chasing them on the perimeters to try and strip a puck. Their focus is having all 5 guys pack the house and then blocking shots to help out their goaltender. And so that brings us to the Carolina side and formula they must have to win this series. Against Montreal, the Habs played a hybrid system that allowed Carolina to use motion to create confusion in coverage and exploit the very system that they employ themselves. Vegas, however, plays a very different style. In the neutral zone, it's extremely compact, especially on one side of the ice. So look for Carolina to use a cross-corner dump-in and then win the retrieval to get possession in the O-zone. The best way to try and beat a zone defense is by exploiting the space between the center and the winger of the defending team as you go low to high. Carolina will try and do this by parking a third forward up high near the blue line to take advantage of that space while Vegas protects the slot. If they can isolate that winger high and create a 2v1, there's an opportunity for a lateral back post play that Carolina can take advantage of. This is something that Utah did relatively well in round 1 against Vegas. And with how much Carolina puts volume on net with shots and how well they retrieve loose pucks, you can probably expect the Hurricanes to win the possession game in this series, especially if they can get the Vegas zone to back off after some sustained pressure. Now, like we mentioned previously, the other element that has become really dangerous for Carolina is their rush game. That same man-on-man defense Vegas will look to exploit has to be very careful with their puck management. Vegas has a fantastic forecheck, but if their F3 gets caught too in deep trying to be aggressive, Carolina can take full advantage of an odd man rush the other way. That type of puck management will be crucial near Carolina's blue line. Also, the Hurricanes will be aggressive at the line higher in the zone, and if they can force a turnover, they will be off to the races. And really, because of how well both of these teams forecheck, I'd expect a lot of these high flip plays to just defer the trouble down the ice. We've seen both teams do it in this playoff run. However, I do think it's advantage Carolina as they're a bit speedier up front. Finally, for the Hurricanes, if they want to win their first Stanley Cup since 2006, their penalty killing has to be just as good as it's been all playoff long. Vegas has the better power play of the two and one of the best in these playoffs, ranking 4th, while Carolina has the best penalty kill. The number one way to stop a lethal power play is to not even let them get set up. Carolina is the best in the league at stopping entries at the blue line. They shift from this 1-3 to a 3-1 depending on the situation, and a lot of it is execution and timing. As a unit, they understand how to shift the puck carrier to the wall and then outnumber them at the right time to force a turnover and avoid a setup. If they can keep that Vegas power play at bay, they stand a good chance. The last most obvious X factor for both of these teams is goaltending. The numbers between Hart and Anderson are outstanding. However, there are probably a few more doubts surrounding Anderson in this series out of the two goalies. Despite him being incredible in the playoffs, he does have a history of faltering with more being directed his way. Carolina, more than any other team, has really sheltered Freddie in terms of shots against. Now, Carter Hart has played more games than Frederik Andersen, but he's also faced more than 200 shots over Freddie in these playoffs. Assuming Vegas gets more shots and sustains zone time more than Montreal, which wasn't hard, the biggest question mark is how will Freddie perform if he sees a little bit more action and friction in the crease. That being said, we've said this every round so far, and Fred X has done his job. You put all this together and you have two teams who are almost dead even. If I had to make a totally wrong pick, I would say Vegas takes this series in 7. I think this is going to be a really close matchup. Both teams have incredible depth, a great decor, and goaltending. But I do give Vegas the slight edge and, more importantly, the star power to break up a tight game. Eichel, Stone, and dare I say, the playoff wizard Mitch Marner all have that ability to take over a game. That being said, I could be totally wrong because hockey is a funny sport, and just when you think you have it all figured out, it'll humble you in the best of ways. So I want to know what you think. Who do you think takes this series and in how many games? Who are you cheering for? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you don't know by now, we break down every single game so you can check out some of our past videos here. And we also on Spotify now, so if you're an audio listener, you can check that out in the description down below as well. If you want coverage of the entire Stanley Cup final, make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single thing.